Daniel Boone saw the effects of overharvest and tried to introduce early legislation to control hunting in Kentucky.
By the time you get into the 1780s and by statehood, you have the buffalo, just small droves here and there, 20 and 30 head, and then really by about 1800, they're pretty much gone.
Now, a lot of people don't realize that Boone was one of our earliest conservationists and tried to protect habitat and the dwindling buffalo herd. Now, fast forward to the 20th century. The elk and buffalo have disappeared from Kentucky. Deer are only seen in small localized areas, and turkeys are essentially gone.
With all my heart and soul, with every particle of high purpose that is in me, I pledge you my word to do everything I can to put every particle of courage, of common sense, and of strength that I have at your disposal.
President Theodore Roosevelt became the most recognized conservationist of the 20th century as he protected wetlands and established the National Park System. In Kentucky, J. Quincy Ward from Cynthiana was quick to recognize the need for a Game and Fish Commission, and in 1912 the agency began its first unsteady steps towards today's Department of Fish and Wildlife.
The Fish and Wildlife, before it became Fish and Wildlife, was under the Department of Agriculture, and it was just fish stocking and law enforcement.
After the fledgling division conducted a study in 1915 and determined deer were almost extinct in Kentucky, they decided to protect them by not having a deer hunting season.
Now, there were places all over the state where you didn't see a deer, not just eastern Kentucky, but of course that was the place where they were pretty much decimated by the turn of the century. And it was a lot of hard work on the part of a lot of folks, the department people, and the sportsmen and women really came through and you know, they ponied up money through the Pittman-Robertson Act for wildlife restoration, buying shotgun shells and rifles and so on and so forth. And we physically caught and moved those deer. And a lot of people don't know that we have to catch them in drop nets or rocket nets and fight them and wrestle them and load them up in trailers and transport them across the state and turn them loose. And it's no easy undertaking. Most of the deer originally came out of land between the lakes.
1946 was the first legal deer hunt in 30 years. We saw an early need to purchase land also for conserving Kentucky's natural resources.
The second oldest wildlife management area we have in the state of Kentucky is actually Beaver Creek, which is in eastern Kentucky, and it was bought and established as a refuge to turn some of these deer and turkeys loose on so that they'd be protected until they could flourish.
Where did turkey come from?
We caught a lot of turkeys in state, and they're tough to catch too. You have to feed them in and shoot a rocket net over them, and it's pretty traumatic for the birds and the people fighting to get them in the boxes.
Something you and I have watched with teary eyes is bringing these elk back.
The elk are the reason that I came to Kentucky. I thought as an up-and-coming biologist in college that all the cool things had been done. Deer had been brought back, turkeys that were brought back, all the bears were recovering, and all the big species that everybody likes to see and go hunt had been restored. So when I saw the opportunity to help restore elk in eastern Kentucky, I couldn't pass it up. But it's probably single-handedly one of the largest, most complex restoration efforts that's ever been undertaken in this country, because we physically caught and relocated with tractor trailers more than 1,500 elk from 2,500 miles away. A 6 or 7 year process of identifying those animals, finding states that were willing to give them up. We had to capture those animals with a variety of methods, everything from tranquilizer guns to corral traps to net gunning out of helicopters, which is extremely dangerous but effective, and then load them all up a trailer at a time and ship them back to Kentucky. A number of obstacles we went through, but it was certainly well worth it. Now we have a herd of probably close to 7,000 animals and growing, and everything's looking up there.
When I was growing up in eastern Kentucky, we had squirrels, and if you're lucky, a few grouse, and that was it. We grew up hunting that small game, and we enjoyed it so much. What's being done to bring them back?
Well, you're exactly right. As much difficulty and as many obstacles as we had to overcome to restore turkeys and deer and elk. Now bears are coming back. All the big species are coming back and doing well. We've now run up against our biggest challenge, and that's how do we bring back the small game populations in this state. We have a tremendous loss of habitat on a daily basis due to uncontrolled development. We have issues across the state, really, with our farms being broken up and sold off, or our farms being consolidated into larger and larger farms, which ultimately, when they become, they start practicing clean farming practices, you lose the hedgerows and the fence rows that bobwhite quail and rabbits love. You lose the ability to manage that property as probably our grandparents did when they had the smaller family farms. So we've tried for years and years. We tried active stocking of things like bobwhite quail and pheasants and so on and so forth, and it just really doesn't work if you don't put the habitat there. We really have to start focusing on creating good habitat in the east for quail and for grouse. We have to do some timber management on our wildlife management areas and on private lands, and do good responsible timber management in the central and western part of the state for bobwhite quail and rabbits. We really have to start focusing on grassland restoration and burning of grasslands to make sure that they produce the types of places that those species can thrive. When you put good habitat on the ground and you manage it, then you have the best chance that we'll ever have of bringing back those species. And that's really the biggest challenge I can tell you over the last 100 years of wildlife management from a historical perspective through modern time. Putting back deer was easy, comparatively speaking. Putting back elk was easy. Putting back turkeys was easy. Even though we had all those challenges, bobwhite quail, ruffed grouse, and rabbits are going to be the mountain that we've got to climb now. In order to continue to perpetuate our hunting tradition, our hunting culture, we've got to get small game back on the landscape, and we've got to get kids going out there and getting after them, because that's our future.